What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about type fives, and we're going to do a live stream on type fives. And I'm doing a live stream every Wednesday night on all the different types. The good, the bad, and the ugly of each of the types. We started with type 9, and then we did 8, and 7, and last week we did 6, and so now we're at the fives. And I want to thank you guys for being a part of this, and feel free to leave comments in the chat, and I'll try to interact with them if possible. And as we go through this information, we got an hour, so we're just going to talk and have a good time talking about type fives. I do have some experience with fives in my life. I've got a few fives that I love and care about, and of course, friends and stuff that are fives. So, and there's a lot of fives on TV, a lot of fives in movies, and so a lot of examples of fiveness around us. My son Harrison is a five wing four, probably the sexual five wing four. And I need to get him on some of my videos. He's out for a walk right now, but I would love to get him on some of these videos so that you guys, he's 17 now, he's bigger than I am. He was in some of my videos years ago as like a little kid. But my son's a five, so I have a lot of experience interacting with fiveness. And my dad, who's passed away now, was more than likely a five. Sometimes, it can be hard to figure out the type of people that are closest to you. And he could have been a one. And there's one person in my family that thinks he might have been a one, but I think probably he was a five. Probably the five wing six. And my mom was a six wing five. So yeah, and his dad was probably a five. So yeah, fives. All right. So let's like I said, welcome in. Feel free to chat. I'd love to talk with you. Or I don't feel like I'm going to answer any of your guys' questions. You guys will probably answer my questions if you're joining me for this. And what else? If you haven't gone to my website yet, tomlahue.com, I have a lot of things to give away. If you just join my Enneagram community, and I'll give you a free mini course on know your why, know your purpose, and also a free assessment there for the Enneagram. And I do offer a lot of different on-demand classes. I'm always adding to that. Right now, I'm going through StrengthsFinder, which is a different system, but very helpful. And I'm creating courses on that as well. But for you guys that are watching this video, 35% off any of my on-demand classes. Just use the coupon code Be Present, all caps. I think you have to use all caps. I don't know. Be Present 35. And any of my courses are 35% off. Okay, so let's talk about type fives: the investigator, the observer. What is the never ever behavior? Never do this to type fives. Never underestimate a type five. You might think that because they're quiet or because they're not saying a lot, that maybe they don't have a plan, maybe they don't have a solution. But you leave them like the old Batman TV series. You leave them tied to the table with the axe swinging over them, and all hope is gone. Surely they'll never be able to survive this. And some way, fives figure out a way to once again bounce back from the challenge. So never underestimate a type five. Just because they're quiet doesn't mean that their brains are not working. Of course they're working. So why would you, as a type five, and I imagine some of you guys are love fives, you're trying to have a good relationship with a type five. Maybe they're your husband or your wife or a parent or a child in your family, a brother or a sister, and you're trying to love this person in your life that's a type five, but they're making it difficult. So this video is all about that. It's all about the good, the bad, and the ugly, why you are the problem. Okay, so I don't get offended now. I've got one of these for every type, and after this will come a cartoon. I'm gonna work on a cartoon this week, a little 3-minute, cartoon summarizing all of these points that I've got here on my paper of why type fives are the problem. And, this is meant to be fun, but also meant to challenge us a little bit. So if you love a type 5, you're trying to get along with them, you're trying to be their friend, and they're making it hard for you. Remember the plant for each of the types. The plant for the type 5 is the cactus. You try to hug them and ow, I think I just got jabbed. Ow, they're making it difficult for me to connect with them. Part of that might come from the sort of the fundamental motivation of fives of being independent and not wanting to be engulfed by others or consumed by other people and feeling like their energy is being drained. Sometimes nines will think they're fives. I worked with a guy one time that he knew he was a 5 and I knew he was a 9, and I didn't let it bother me because he was a 9. It didn't really bother him, but I just talked to him as though he was a 5, even though I knew he was a 9, because you can't convince somebody that, you're not supposed to push their Enneagram type on them. But anyway, he thought he was a 5. And I think sometimes nines could think they're 5s, especially men might think they're 5s. Women nines often think that they are 2s. I mean, nines, let's be fair, they often think they're 4s and 7s, and they go around the dial and sometimes really get confused. But one of the things that will distinguish or differentiate whether you are a 5 or a 9 is, I think nines, they tend to try to minimize awkwardness. They tend to say things like, well, mom, now to be fair, I don't think dad meant it that way. I think what dad was trying to say is, and in that sense, see the 9 as like trying to minimize the conflict and make everything okay. And I don't like this awkward, uncomfortable environment. So I'm going to try to work to mediate this and make everybody feel more comfortable. And really, fives don't do that. Okay. Fives are not about making people feel comfortable. In fact, fives might create a very awkward energy around them by just saying out loud things that even an 8 wouldn't say. Like an 8 might not say that out loud because that's going to hurt someone's feelings, and the 5 might just blurt it out and very like indifferent and not aware necessarily that this is going to hurt somebody's feelings, just thinking, what, it's a fact, it's just information, why would somebody be offended by this? And may not be aware. In fact, fives tend to be the least likely to care about social norms and sometimes to be unaware. Think the absent-minded professor, that knows how to split atoms in a laboratory, but then doesn't notice that there's spaghetti on their coat and doesn't realize, sometimes a lot of fives will say they feel like that they missed whatever class they were supposed to take on doing relationships. They just kind of don't give a lot of attention to the small talk, the insignificant small talk of, hi, how was your vacation? How are you doing? Oh, tell me about your son. Oh, yeah, I'm very interested in that. Because I think fives, they tend to operate like, I'm not interested in that. And the most important thing to me as a 5, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's some 5s in here, feel free to jump in and tell me what I don't understand. But I think with fives, it's a little bit like the most important thing about me is what I'm focusing my attention on. And if I'm not interested in something, then why would I focus my attention on that? I wouldn't. I don't. And I don't underestimate me. I can manage on my own and I don't need a relationship with those people. So why would I pursue a relationship with somebody that I don't want them to bother me, so I'm not going to bother them. And all of this I think makes a lot of sense. Let me give you an illustration. I've said this before on my videos, but I remember talking to a 5 woman, and she was a pastor's wife. Okay. So, I mean, pastors, we have to be nice to people and we have to, care about everybody. And when they tell us their stories, we have to listen intently and say, oh my, I can't imagine. That sounds very, how is your mom doing? We're supposed to present this caring disposition. And that goes for pastors' wives too. People have this expectation, that the pastor's wife, she plays piano every Sunday, and then she stays up all night praying for everybody, and making oatmeal for her kids every night and reading Bible stories to her children and then praying and sending notes to everybody in the church. People have some pretty weird ideas, right, for pastors' wives. This woman was a pastor's wife, and she was a 5. And I remember her saying this to me, and I just belly laughed. She kind of looked at me like, "Why are you laughing?" But she said one day her husband, the pastor, her husband said to her, "I think that Mary, this other lady at church, she thinks you're mad at her." And to which the pastor's wife said, "Who's Mary?" Who's Mary? And so the pastor explained it. Well, that's the lady that, whatever, runs the coffee shop or runs the welcome counter at church or whatever it is. And the pastor's wife was puzzled by this, and she rubbed her head and she said, I said to him, "Why would she think I was upset with her? I've literally never spoken to her." And to me, that is just beautiful example of, I think, the difference between a 5 and a 6. For example, look at that line between 5 and 6, right? A 6 who wants a team around them. I'm there for you, I'm going to support you, and I need to know that you're there for me. And 6s are often masters of greasing the wheels of relationships. They realize I'm a part of a village and I need to know that my village is there for me. And then there's 5s, the hermit on the edge of the village, studying their potions to slay dragons, and surprised that the people in the village, want to have a relationship with them. Why would they be upset with me? I've literally never spoken to them. And look at the greed in that. Can you see the avarice? Can you see the stinginess of why would they be upset with me? I've literally never spoken to them. So tonight is all about you guys, the 5s. And the topic is, why would people sometimes misunderstand or take you the wrong way? Why you are the problem. All right. So let's talk about why you are the problem. And just a reminder, you can go to my website, tomlahue.com. I'd love for you to join my Enneagram community. There's a free gift for you, a free download of a little canned mini course on know your why. Good information, great information. It's good for all of us. And I think the Enneagram, it's really not a class about the Enneagram. It's just good, useful stuff for all of us. But the Enneagram is really helpful in helping us know our why and understand a little bit more about our purpose, who we are, what we're here for, and those kind of things. All right, so let's get into this list. Why you are the problem. Great. Candle Lover, welcome. And Monopoly Joe, welcome. Thank you guys. Thanks for shooting a chat. I appreciate it. Okay, so here's my list of why people might get frustrated with a type 5. Number 1, let me put numbers next to these because I won't be able to remember what numbers I said for what. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No edits. We just go with it as it is. All right. So number 1, emotional distance. All right. Number 1, emotional distance. Type 5s can often come off as detached or emotionally distant. Well, what's the opposite of that? Emotionally present, right? Emotionally present is, think like 6s or 2s. I'm here for you. What do you want to talk about? How can I show up and be a companion? How can I show up in this conversation in such a way that you feel heard, supported, and valued? I'll focus my energy on you and your situation and your problem so that you matter and you are supported. That would be emotionally present. So the opposite of that would be emotionally distant. And 5s could come off a little bit guarded. Guarded would be a good word. Guarded would be a good word for my dad, who I think was a 5. Guarded. Self-protected. Okay. So detached and emotionally distant. That's just, I'm not available to you right now. Sorry, Look at the sign. It says not available right now. And I've known some fives that when they're talking about what they're interested in, they're kind of like a dump truck filled with all of this information, and they really want you to show up and be interested. If you want to connect with a five, it's really pretty simple usually. It's not always easy to do if you don't have the bandwidth left. If you're not resonating, at the right level, it might be difficult to connect with a five. But often with a five, they just want to connect with you over information. They want to tell you all the things you don't know about some subject. And sometimes when they're on, get ready for the dump truck of information of all the facts, details, and statistics and everything that you don't know. However, there are times when you want to talk to them, when you want to connect with them, and you start talking, and you might get this response from them, just kind of not available. And they can be kind of stingy with their attention. They want you to focus your attention on them and their information and their story, but they might struggle with giving their focus of their attention to you. So you always got to ask yourself, how does this person need me to show up in this conversation? And sometimes with sevens want an audience that laughs at them, right? Laughs with them. And, sixes might want a supportive friend, and fives might want a student body. So show up like a student body and let the professor, share their information. So, if you're familiar with the attachment styles, I'm a dismissive avoidant. Sounds the same as a five. I'm trying to heal my attachment style. But are all fives dismissive attachment? Honestly, I don't know. The easiest answer I can give, or the best answer, is I don't know. I don't know. But emotionally unavailable, I would say that if you were just telling me that, I would say, oh, are you talking about fives? Emotionally unavailable. um, because I think probably a lot of fives would struggle with that. They wouldn't be the only type that would struggle with that, but I would say that they would come across, look, stingy, greedy, avarice. A great yet super specific example of a social five. Oh, the kid with the glasses from the Polar Express. Montezuma drank 4 cups of hot chocolate every day, but he didn't sugar it with, we didn't sweeten it with sugar. He put hot chili pepper in it. Yeah, right. I get it. Kind of like nobody was asking that question. And on that, I mean, think about it like this: a five wing four is withdrawn, but the two lines go to 7 and 8, which is assertive. And so sometimes fives can look a little either withdrawn or asserting, taking over the platform and spouting off all the information and things we don't know, or not saying anything and maybe hesitating and withdrawing or being observers. The thing they might struggle with is being compliant, like complying to the conversation as it is, complying their information with the facts that are on the table, not outdoing everybody with their more interesting facts that no one else knows. Right. Can you talk about sexual fives? Sexual fives are challenging for me to figure out sometimes. I would say of the 1,000+ appointments, probably close to 2,000 coaching appointments I've done with people, the only times I've ever gotten really stumped, because a lot of times people want to know what their Enneagram type is. And they're like, hey, Dr. Tom, I've been learning about the Enneagram. What's my type? And the only times that I've had those appointments where we get to the end of the hour and I'm like, wow, I see why this is challenging for you. I'm not sure, even after an hour talking to you, because usually I can tell pretty quick. I mean, honestly, now I can tell pretty quick what people's types are. Every once in a while, I might get it wrong. I'm not going to say I don't ever get it wrong, but I could get it wrong. But the only times I've ever really gotten stumped, probably about 3 or 4 times in whatever 4 years I've been doing this, 3 years I've been doing this, and every one of those was either a four wing five or a five wing four. And my guess is at the end of those appointments, I would say, wow, I can see why you're struggling with this. And I can understand why you could see 4-wing-5 here, and I can understand why you would say 5-wing-4. But when I get to the end of that appointment and I can't tell, and I just have to wrap it up and I can't tell, my guess is they're probably sexual 5-wing-4s, because the sexual 5 often looks like a 4. They're the one that is the counter 5 that is most likely to connect with their emotions, most likely to connect with their feelings, and the most likely to be focused on relationships and finding that perfect, desirable mate. That perfect. So I think a sexual 5-wing-4. Somebody said that maybe John Lennon is an example of a 5-wing-4 sexual. Possibly, I don't know John Lennon. He's not my friend. But I could see that he does look a lot like a 4 to me. But he could be a 5-wing-4. Probably what comes to my mind when I think of a sexual 5-wing-4 is whatever cartoon it was, the Corpse Bride. Yeah, the Corpse Bride, I think, is the name of the cartoon. And there's this little Dr. Frankenstein character who's got to be a 5. And the whole movie, if I remember right, he's creating a bride. That's the whole point of his, if I remember it right. He's creating this bride, this perfect bride that's a perfect person for him. And then when you get to the end of the movie, the bride looks just like him, only it's a female. It's like exactly a copy of him that he's created, like this perfect specimen, for himself. And I think that is sexual 5-wing-4 stuff. And in the old days, the character that comes to my mind that could be like a sexual 5-wing-4, and I could be way wrong about this, I could be way out in left field, but what comes to my mind is like Vincent Price. If you think about the old Vincent Price movies, where he's kind of this dashing suave with the pencil thin mustache, but I don't think he's a 3, and I don't think he's a 1. I think he's a 5. Just kind of this creepy, morbid character. He's always kind of the same character in different movies, and a lot of it is like this macabre romantic, and that's very 5-wing-4 stuff. So thanks for that question. It's a tough one. 5-wing-4 is a tough one, sometimes to figure out on the Enneagram. Or yeah, 5-wing-4 and 4-wing-5. Think about if you watch the show, what is it, Wednesday or Tuesday? Wednesday, I think. She is a 5-wing-4. And then go over to Stranger Things, and 11, I think, is a 4-wing-5. And look at those two characters. Wednesday, a 5-wing-4, and 11 on Stranger Things, a 4-wing-5. They could look very similar in some ways, but I think ultimately they're very different. So let me see what else we got here. I'm stuck between either a 1-wing-9, self-preservation social, or a 5-wing-4 sexual. Interesting. Yeah, and what I would guess about that, Abir, is 5s and 1s could look alike for a lot of reasons, but I would say probably the biggest reason is they both kind of come across as like the right person, like I'm right. Sort of a little bit like a know-it-all. I'm not saying you are, okay? I'm not saying you're a know-it-all, but 5s and 1s do kind of share that. They're both right. They're both correct with their information. They both know the right way to do things sometimes. More so the social one than the other ones. The self-preservation one's a little more anxious, a little trying to get it right. But the social one for sure, and the 5 could look alike. And the social 5, I think, is the one that could look a little bit like a 1. All right, so let me see here. I have a friend who is a 5. She's highly intellectual. Nihilistic philosophy, big surprise, because if you push 5s to an unhealthy place, you get nihilism or whatever it's called. And the way I would say this is I came up with the doing statements of every type. Okay. So just think, how does every type relate to doing? And I think I called the video like how every type does it. And so people got like the wrong idea. They were like, how every type does it. I want to watch that video. And what I meant is how every type relates to the concept of doing. And it's just this little kind of like formula I created that makes sense to me. And once you see this, you'll see it all the time. It's crazy. This silly little mantra thing I came up with. I don't even know what to call it. This little lens to see the world. Once you see this, you'll hear it all the time now with people. How every type relates to doing. Eights. Okay. Something needs to be done about this. Don't tell me what to do. All right. There's an eight. Something needs to be done about this. Sometimes you'll get a nuanced version of that with eights, like something needs to be done about this. I'm not doing it. A lot of the eights will jump in and do it, but then there's sometimes where eights are just like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not moving. No, no. If you want cat litter all over the house, then I assume you want cat litter all over the house. I'm not doing it. Who's to blame? Not me. I'm not. Something needs to be done about this, but I'm not doing it. Eights will sometimes be like that, or something needs to be done about this. Don't tell me what to do. Now contrast that with nines. Here's the nines statement: is just tell me what you want me to do. And so many times with nines, they're kind of looking at you like, just tell me what you want me to do. Just tell me what you want me to do. Ones, something should have been done about this a long time ago. So you got that little edge, that little scrapey, disappointed edge to ones, right? Twos, on the positive side, you could say twos say, what can I do for you? But then you kind of have the negative side of twos, like, after all I've done for you, this is how I'm treated. So just notice how many times when you have these people in your life and they're telling you whatever they're upset about, just ask yourself, could I summarize this with this statement? After all I've done for them, this is how I'm treated. Okay. You're probably a two. Threes, watch me. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I did. Look at what I've done. Okay, there's your threes. Okay, here's fours whose speaking style is lamenting. Look what they've done to me. And many of the conversations you have with a four, you could basically summarize it. They've talked for an hour and a half about how their mom wasn't this, and then their dad moved them around a lot, and then there was this boss at work that did this. And basically, you could say, wow, you basically told me for an hour and a half, look at what they've done to me. Okay. And then five, here's the five statement: doing something's not going to make a difference. And what does that sound like? That sounds like nihilism, fatalism, stoicism, all of those kind of isms together. Fatalism, nihilism, stoicism. Look at the sixes. We got to do something. Something needs to be done. We got to do something. What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And then there's the five right next to him. Doing something's not going to make a difference. Go ahead, wave your signs, wave your political candidate signs. It's not going to change anybody's opinion. Nobody's going to switch sides because you're out there on the street waving your sign. Doing something doesn't make a difference. Watch and see. I'm telling you guys, just listen to the conversations around you and you'll start to see the Enneagram everywhere. Sevens, what are we going to do today? I want something to do. What are we doing? All right. So there's a little trip around the Enneagram with the doing statements of every type. And yeah, nihilism. So you were talking about a friend of yours. This is from Christian Rock and Metal Nostalgia. This goes back to our chat a while back here. I've been talking a lot. Seven, distracted. I don't care. It's my channel. I'll run it any way I want. Look at me leaning into my eight wing. I'm a 7-wing 6, but I'm going to lean into that 8-wing. I'll just do it how I want to do it. Don't tell me what to do. Okay. So here's, I have a friend who is a 5. She is highly intellectual, loves nihilistic philosophy and research papers, hates sentimental, warm emotions, does everything alone, is asexual, and swears she's not a 5. Okay, so what is she, right? It's kind of like if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. Sometimes, people resist the Enneagram because they're like, well, that can't put me in a box. You can't know who I am, or where'd this come from, or this is stupid. This idiot gram. I'm a perfect 10. And you're like, okay, whatever. I've met you before, sir. Abir Rahman says, what does it do? Okay, we already talked that one. Random girl, I'm late to this. If you haven't already talked about this, I don't think I'm a five-wing four. Uh, I don't think a five-wing four would get along with a five-wing six. I'm a five-wing six INFJ. Oh, really? Are you a five-wing six INFJ? Because if you're an INFJ, I want to push on that a little bit because let's just say it this way: a lot of nine wing ones are INFJs. I'm not saying you're a nine. I'm just saying my experience is INFJ. That's very nine wing one ish. Think when you get the NF together, you've got the driving force here is individuality. Everybody's an individual. Everybody has a unique perspective. Everybody sees things differently. And then FJ together, the key word is harmony. Everybody's different and we should all get along. Everybody's unique and we should all understand each other. And that INFJ stuff, yeah, most of the time is a nine wing one. I could be wrong, but yeah, maybe. And yeah, let's just say this. The people that bother us the most are often people of our own type. So if you are a five and you're bothered by another five, that doesn't surprise me. And there's probably good reasons why that is. Like some of us will connect easily with people of our own type, and then there's other people of our own type that just drive us crazy because you're like, they're just doing it. I tell myself no, and look, they're just going for it. They're just saying it out loud. Yikes! Control yourself because you can see through. Here's the thing. See, we all have these defense mechanisms, these protective strategies, and the reality is I don't always understand another type's protective strategies because I don't necessarily use those same protective strategies. And so when you see someone of your own type using those protective strategies, you see through them and you're like, I know what's going on. Think about, for example, if you're a four, and I've had many times I've had this conversation with fours. If you're a four, like a self-preservation four, okay, so you're the sunny four that's trying to keep it all together, and you look a little bit like a seven. You're trying to keep a positive attitude, and then you look across the campus and you see a social four, with the hair in the eyes and the pink backpack and the blue hair and the tattoos everywhere and the mini skirt with combat boots and black eyeliner and black fingernails and piercings and a misfit shirt. You look at that and you go, oh my honey, you're trying way too hard. Oh wow, that's so pathetic. And realize, like the rest of us who aren't fours, we see that and we go, oh yeah, I've seen that kind of person before. They stand out, they're different, they're unique, whatever, they're special. But you as a four see that, you're horrified. You're like, oh honey, she's trying too hard. Oh my, well, that's so pathetic, right? So I'm telling you, my wife is a two, guys, and sometimes when she meets other twos, she cringes. She's like, oh, that flattery, that sweet, nice stuff. It's just like, because she sees through it. The rest of us are like, wow, somebody was friendly to me. Wow, somebody was nice to me. Wow, somebody stopped and asked me how I was doing. My wife can see that and be like, I can see through that. I know what she's doing. She's putting cheese in the mousetrap. Twos, they put cheese in the mousetrap and then whoosh, they get you, right? Fives don't put a lot of cheese in the mousetrap. They don't really have a mousetrap because they don't need you. I mean, they do need you. We all humans, right? We're all humans. We all need each other. But the five doesn't want to need. They want to be independent and be an island unto themselves. Okay, so what do we got here in the comments? Look, I got my list here. I don't know if we're going to get back to it, but this is good stuff. Jennifer Maxwell, can we talk about the commonalities between fives and sevens? Yes, they do look alike. Let me give you an example of somebody that you go, is that person a five or is that person a seven? Weird Al Yankovic. There's a good example of somebody that's like, is he a five or is he a seven? I think he's a five. Oh my goodness, maybe he's a seven. Weird Al Yankovic is a good example of somebody that I think is a five. I think he's a five. Um, but he has a very strong line to 7. And I don't think that's because he's unhealthy. I think that some 5s just have a stronger line to 7. And what's interesting about the Enneagram is sometimes you can't tell what a person's type is, but you can tell what line they're on. That's worth the price of admission, guys. That one idea or that one thought is maybe something you've never thought about before, but sometimes you'll meet a person and you'll be like, wow, I can't tell. Are they an 8 or a 2? They're on that line somewhere between 8 and 2. And sometimes they look like an 8, sometimes they're a 2. Oh my goodness, I can't tell, but they're on that line somewhere. And then when you spend a little more time with them or talk to them about it, you can probably figure out which one they are. But some 5s are going to look very 7 like, and it may be because they're unhealthy, unbalanced and all that. But sometimes they just are 5s that look, like the Far Side's a good example of this. The Far Side comics, what's his name? Gary something. I loved the Far Side comics when I was a teenager, and maybe you did too. Far Side comics are very 5 energy. Okay, whoever the guy is that created the Far Side, my guess he's probably a 5, very ISTP, kind of, or maybe even ENTP kind of comedy. And it's very 70 too. I mean, he's writing comedy, he's writing funny stuff. British humor. You could say that every country could be an Enneagram type. America has been historically like a 3 kind of country, valuing those values. And Britain is historically been a 5 country. Now, maybe in the old days it might have been more 1-ish, but it's 5. Like, look at all the humor. Look at the Little Britain and that Mitchell and Webb look, and Monty Python, all that stuff. Very 5 kind of humor. Man, I'm way off on a tangent here. I'm a social 5. I refer to myself as a diet 7. I like that. Okay. My husband's a 9-wing 1, right on. Okay. All right. So 8-wing 7 fights with 8s. What's your MBTI? I guess you're talking to me, Aaron. I'm an ENFP, the most annoying type. Look it up. ENFP. Extroverts, they annoy people more than introverts. Intuitives, they annoy people. They annoy the sensors. Fs, they annoy the thinkers because we get our feelings hurt. And Ps, who won't make a schedule, they annoy the people that want to make schedule. So the opposite would be an ISTJ. Notice that 7, a lot of 7s are ENFPs, not all 7s, but a lot of them are. And then notice that line to 1, a lot of 1s are ISTJs. Just look at that. I mean, we should expect to see this kind of order in all these personality systems, that they do kind of, they're talking about the same subject, humans, and it's no surprise that there's some commonalities between these systems. So yeah, ENFP. All right, so what did we get? Number 1, we got 10 of them, right? So number 1 was emotional distance. So type 5s can often come off as detached and emotionally not available. This may make it difficult for emotionally expressive individuals to feel connected to them. You think? Right. Because my wife, for example, is a 2 and my son is a 5. So the 2 wants to connect, and the 5, what's in this for me? How was karate practice? It was fine. Was your friend there? Was Jack there? Was he? Did you guys have a good sparring? No. Look at the stinginess, right? It's like, oh, you want to connect with me? No, thanks. Not present. Not available. No, thank you. Yeah, 2s and 5s. I got a couple that I used to coach. She's a 2 and her husband's a 5. That one's a challenging, because almost like the 2 has to decide. All right, it's some of my magic's just not going to work on this wizard. And that's just the way it's going to be. So once I change my expectations, we can probably get along fine. And 2s and 8s, sometimes that same thing. Like finally that 8 will say, oh my gosh, mom, knock it off. I can't handle all your feelings. I can't handle all your obligations. No, stop the manipulation. And so I got a friend, she's an 8 and her mom's a 2. It's not my family, but I got a friend, and she's like, I had to have that talk with mom. I'm like, I can't deal with your stuff, mom. And then once they like, okay, well, I got to change my tactics a little bit. And I would think a 2 and a 5, that might be. Can ISTPs be nice? Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Of course. Look up, I tell you what, look up ISTP and just do a Google search. ISTP Enneagram. Just put those 4 letters and Enneagram together, and you'll find a chart that shows you, if you are this Myers-Briggs type, here's the chances that you are these Enneagram types. And it's kind of helpful. All right. So my best friend's a 2. Lots of cheese in the mousetrap. Yeah. Right. Lots of cheese in the mousetrap. Okay. So emotional. Yeah. This can be a problem if people want to connect with the 5 and they don't feel like they want to connect right now, because they don't want to feel obligated. I think 5s don't want to feel obligated, and they understand that this connection, is going to drain. And I think the challenge for 5s is realize, like, a lot of these connections could fuel. They could be a source of life and energy for you. It's not always an exhaustion of energy to connect with people. Like, maybe some of these people that are trying to connect with you could energize you and fuel you, or put coins in the bank, right? And not always take coins out of the bank. I finally figured out, this is from architecture, I think I'm saying it right, 204. I finally figured out why I can relate to 7, 9, 2, and 5 and 8s, but I can't relate to 6 and 3, and the most distant to 4. Okay, interesting. All right, so let's look at number 2. The need for privacy. The need for, I would say, space, or just time alone. Remember, 5s are a withdrawn type, right? So 5, 4, and 9 all got to get their space to sort of recover from interactions. They've got to recover their energy. They've got to go and investigate and, maybe tap into their feelings and their thoughts and think through things. I'm the kind of person that I have a conversation going on in my head all the time. It's not always on task, but there is a conversation always going on. I've talked to some 9s who tell me they can turn that off, and sometimes there's no conscious thought in their head. They might go 20 minutes or an hour with just no conscious thought, and I don't understand that. I don't have an empty box. And not all 9s, but some 9s tell me they have an empty box, which I find interesting. My son, who's a 5, says, "Oh, I have 3 or 4 conversations going on all the time in my head." I don't understand that either. I really don't. I don't. I'll have 2 or 3 books I'm reading but I put one down and pick the other one up, and then I move to that one, and then I put that one down and move to another, and I'm with that. I can't have 3 books I'm reading at the same time. I can't have 3 conversations going on in my head at the same time. And he's solving problems. I don't like to solve problems. I can memorize, I can learn things, but I don't like working through solutions. Blech. Okay. All right. The need for privacy. If you are a 5, okay, let me say it this way. If you love a 5 and you are in a relationship with a 5, allow your 5, expect your 5 to need a secret layer. Okay? Think of like Dr. Evil with his cat. That's 5 stuff. Okay? The evil villain, that has a secret layer, the laboratory with all of the bubbling, whatever they're called, beakers. Every 5 needs that cave or that layer or that laboratory. They open the bookshelf and there's a secret panel, and then they can now like retreat behind that castle wall. So if you love a 5, just recognize they probably need at times to get away from everybody. And that doesn't mean they don't love you or don't care about you. It just means they're a withdrawn type that needs their space. They need their privacy. Okay. Yes, I was married for 40 years ago to a 5, unbearable emotional indifference. Yeah, sorry about that. Privacy in regards to information is a biggie too. My type 5 husband is on a need to know basis with most people. Yeah. Dexter's Laboratory. Yeah. I think you're talking about the cartoon. I've never watched Dexter, but just from what I know of the show, is he a 5 too? Maybe some of you guys that know the show Dexter, tell me if he's a 5, but Dexter's Laboratory. Yeah. Okay. So privacy and that could be interpreted. Okay, so those of us that want to connect with a 5 and they're retreating from us and locking themselves in their basement, that could certainly be interpreted as aloofness or apathy or indifference. It could certainly hurt our feelings, right? All of us feeling types. Their lack of interest could be perceived as like they're not interested in developing this relationship. And they might truthfully not be, which could feel hurtful if you're trying to connect with them or develop a relationship with them. Okay, number one was emotional distance. Number two was need for privacy. And number three, first, before we get to that, Random Girl says, what other Enneagram types need a getaway space? Well, I mean, all of us do at times, to be fair. Think first of all the withdrawn types, 9, 5, and 4. Think of them, okay, because they're withdrawn types. They've got to get away to sort of recover, figure out what their feelings mean, to figure out what they want sometimes. And then even like eights who have a line to 5, when they're done, you'll see them withdraw and don't follow them. Let them go. Let them withdraw when they're done. When they're upset, um, let them go. Ones when they're not doing well, they have a line to 4, and they may need some space, away from everybody to cool down, to calm down. And I guess in a sense, all of us, we need to learn to move all of us between assertive, compliant, and withdrawn. Think about it like this, guys. All of us should be balanced between those three. Most of us, we do two really well, and then one we have a problem with. So, you might, for example, comply your energy to everybody else and what needs to be done. And then when you're home, you withdraw. You're done. Pajamas are on, TV's on, chips and salsa, and I'm done. Seinfeld, here we go. And so you tend to comply all day and then withdraw. What would be hard for you might be to be assertive. And learning to be a little more assertive would be a good thing for you. On the other hand, some people, they are assertive, they're going after their job, their career, they're building their business, they're reaching their goals while they're helping others, they're coaching people, they're counseling people, they're pastoring people, very driven and also to their goals and also very compliant. And then they feel guilty if they withdraw, like they're not being productive, they're not being resourceful, they're not managing their time well, they're taking time off, they could be working and they could be productive, and they're going to burn out. You can see what's going to happen. They've got to learn to structure their life to be balanced and withdraw. And then there's people who are very assertive and very withdrawn, and they don't comply well with the group, and they can be quite annoying and difficult to be around because they don't know how to comply their energy with what we're doing today. They are either asserting themselves or they're withdrawing themselves, and so we want to learn to be balanced between all three of these. Ask yourself, which do you do well and which is hard for you, and now you know what growth starts to look like. Start to grow in the one that's most difficult for you, and ask yourself, if I could be a little more assertive, or if I could be a little more withdrawn, or if I could be a little more compliant, would my life be better? And almost 100% of the time, yes. You'd be easier to love. You would do your relationships better. And some of these problems that you have in life, you'd be able to resolve better if you could see yourself leaning a little more into that. And you can. That's the whole point. You can. Any one of us could become more assertive. Any one of us could be a little more compliant. Any one of us could make ourselves withdraw and take space and time. It's just we got to become intentional about this. And the Enneagram's helpful for us to be able to see these kinds of things. All right. So number 3 is over analytical. Over analytical. Their tendency to analyze and dissect information can sometimes be perceived as nitpicking and overthinking, which can be tiresome for some people. Let me give you an example. Hey, son, uh, maybe you could wear the jeans we got at American Eagle. We didn't get jeans. Well, yeah, didn't we pick up some jeans the other day at American Eagle? Those aren't jeans. Well, what are they? Those are, and then fill in the blank. Those are casual pants. So those are slacks. Okay, just put on the pants we got from American Eagle. That wasn't American Eagle. We went to American Eagle, but we didn't buy them there. Okay, whatever store we got them from, whatever pants they are, whatever store it was. But it's like, you got it wrong. Sorry. I'd love to help you out, but you didn't get your information right. So I don't know what you're talking about. The pants we got at the store the other day. We went into American Eagle. They were blue. They were with the jeans. Those pants. Well, actually, those were slacks, and they were from Hollister. You know what I'm talking about. Why do we have to be so accurate all the time? Why do we have to debate all the time? Can't we just have a conversation? Oh my goodness. You know what I'm saying. Don't you? You're the smartest person in the room. Yeah, but you didn't say it correctly. See, you kind of look like a one there. This kind of stuff looks a little bit like a one. A one could be just as frustrating with this kind of stuff. You're the smartest person in the room. You know what I mean. But you're proving to me that I got it wrong and you got it right. And you're smarter than me. Ha ha ha. Okay. Over analytical. Number 4, limited energy for social interactions. Limited energy for social, in other words, being around a lot of people is something that is anathema. It gets old, it gets exhausting, you don't want to do it. 5s often feel that they have limited energy reserves for social interactions, leading them to be selective or reticent or apprehensive in engaging in group activities or long conversations. And so you might just vanish. You might just disappear. You might just check out. Remember, every type. I remember reading this a long time ago, and I don't know if I have it memorized anymore. But the superpowers of every type. I'm pretty sure I did a video on it a long time ago. If I remember right, the superpowers of a type 5 was invisibility cloak. Invisibility. Like you can just make themselves invisible. Or they could dominate a room. They could one or the other. They can make themselves invisible. And this might be what happens when you're done. And maybe you can't leave because you're a teacher and you can't leave until the bell rings. But reality is you left a long time ago. Like you're gone. You're already checked out. You're disappeared. And there's this shell left that probably looks very 70, right? Because 5 disintegrates to 7. So you got this kind of 70 shell who's kind of smiling and looking at all the kids and responding to them with sarcastic answers, and moving them away with sort of a friendliness or a charm, but it's like camouflage. Like, yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, move along, move along, move along. Because I've already checked out. I've been gone a long time ago. I'm done. I'm exhausted. But I've got 3 more hours before the bell rings. Okay. So limited energy for social interactions. I mean, think if you're married to somebody that let's go do stuff. Let's go do stuff. Let's be around people. Let's say, for example, you're married to a 7, you're married to a 2. Let's go be around people. And here's the 5. How long are we going to be there? When are we done? When can we go home? How much longer? More or less than an hour? More or less than an hour? Well, does anybody know what I'm talking about? Come on. You guys got to know what I'm talking about. So limited energy for social interactions. Can we go home? When can we go home? How much longer do we need to be here? It's like we just got here. Okay. Number 5, a reluctance to share personal feelings. A reluctance to share personal feelings. They might hesitate about opening up and making it difficult for others to really get to know them on a deeper level or on an emotional level. My take on fives is they always watch, gather, but yeah, don't share. Sometimes. Or again, they remember they share sometimes when you're not asking them about information you're not asking about, butterflies and whatever they're into, Star Trek. that's pretty that's pretty stereotypical, right? Star Trek, Klingon. Me and 8-wing 7, I love to play with sevens and I adore finding solutions with fives. Nice. Okay, good. All right. I like to play, so let's play. All right, so reluctance to share personal feelings. Number 6, avoidance of practical matters. Avoiding practical matters. So while they're keen on their intellectual pursuits, and I would say also their philosophical pursuits, especially 5-wing 4s, 5-wing 6s tend to be, the problem solver, the tinkerer. They like science, math, practical things, fixing stuff, solving problems, investigating, right? And then 5-wing 4s tend to be a little more morbid. They tend to be a little more philosophical, theoretical, Dungeons and Dragons, theology, occult. They tend to be more into the philosophy of things, the theoretical things. Not always, but that's my take on it. While they're very keen on their intellectual pursuits, their theoretical things, type 5s might sometimes neglect everyday responsibilities, like who's going to take the kids I almost said take the kids to the vet. Who's going to take the kids to the piano lesson? Who's going to take the dog to the vet? Who's going to make sure those gutters get fixed? Again, that's complying, and that may be difficult for you as a 5. So domestic support, let's say it that way. Every marriage and every relationship, there's a need for domestic support. We got all this stuff we got to get done, and I need help doing it. I don't need you stuck in your basement learning Klingon while I'm trying to get the kids signed up for their t-ball practice. Like, could you show up a little bit and help out and care about these things, these practical things that have to get done? Okay, again, smartest person in the room, right? Okay, number 7, preference for observing, and that is without engaging. Okay, so their tendency to take on the role of observer rather than active participant in social situations, that could be mistaken as disinterest or passivity. So imagine like being at a family reunion and like, just being checked out and withdrawn, maybe on your phone, disengaged, not maybe you're observing everything with your radars out and you're picking up this conversation and that conversation. But if I looked at you, it would look like you don't want to be here. It would look like you're completely disinterested in all these people. You don't want to connect, you don't want to engage. And a lot of people would think you're being rude. And no doubt, if you're a 5, you've been called rude before and you're like, what? How am I being rude? I'm not saying anything to anybody. I'm treating them exactly the way I want to be treated. But to the 6s and the 2s and the 9s, you're going to be perceived as being rude. The Klingon learning is vitally important. Yes. Okay. Sheldon, I think it's Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. That's like a very out there 5, but it's still fun to find characters like that. Okay, number 8, information guarding. Guarded. I said guarded, right? That's one of the protective strategies we use, guarding. 5s might hoard information or knowledge, feeling that it's their primary resource, and they could be perceived as being secretive or withholding. Yeah, and let me just tell you, 5s, like, okay, stop, challenge yourself, right? If you have people in your life that you love, if you're a dad and you're a 5, okay, tell your kids you love them. Tell your kids how you feel about them. Figure out whatever it takes to get those words out. Don't be stingy with those words of affection. Don't be stingy with, make yourself grow. Make yourself take the risk. Get it out there and let your kid know you're proud of them. Look at them and say, hey, you did a great job. I'm really proud. You hustled, hustled, hustled. I couldn't be prouder of you. Get that out. Okay. You got to get that out. It's so important. Be stingy with your money, be stingy with your resources, but make sure these people in your life, your wife, your kids, your grandkids, make yourself push against this compulsion and share your time, attention, your affection, and make sure that you take the opportunity to do that. You got to force yourself to do this, okay? Get that turtle out of his shell and make sure that you share that love with the people around you, because you do love them. I know you love them, but you can't just say that once and then I meant it. You got to make yourself say it, okay? And it'll get easier. Once you start doing it, it'll get easier. Okay. All right. I'm saying this because I love you and I care about you. So, information guarding. Number 9, overwhelmed with emotional expectations. When you feel drained, when let's say you got a party and all these people are coming over and everybody needs you to listen and talk to them, that you can feel overwhelmed by that. When there are boundaries, and by the way, you guys that are 5s, you are the boundary kings of the Enneagram. Boundaries, you could teach me and the 2s and the 9s. We all need to learn about boundaries. Boundaries in personal space, when you feel like it's being infringed upon, they can become defensive, territorial, rude, cruel, ugly. All these things can happen if you feel like you're, you know, if your boundaries are being intruded on. Okay, so here's what Amy says. I'm a 5. I have no interest in Klingon. Great. And love to share information. One thing I was sent on Earth to do is connect with people. Fantastic. Information and resources. Fantastic. Not easy to be a 5. I know. I know, Amy. I know it's not easy. All of these, we've all got our struggles. We've all got a dragon we're fighting. We're trying to love each other. We're trying to love people. And so, realize this, all of us, our personality type, it works for us a lot of the times. A lot of the time, in a lot of the different arenas of life, it works for us. But there's always going to be some times when it's not really working. And catching that is maturity. Catching that and saying, okay, I have this impulse, but that impulse, it works for me here in this area, but it's not working for me in my marriage. It's not working for me in my home. It's not working for me in my community. And it's not really moving me toward what I want. It's moving me away from what I want. And I got to recognize that. And then I got to push back on that impulse or that compulsion a little bit. Try being a 5 and highly sensitive. Yeah. And are you a 5 wing 4? Because, I tend to think of the sensitive 5s as being, and I think that's one of those things, those misconceptions of 5s, is that they're these Terminator robots. And obviously you're not. You have a heart like everybody else, and you have a great capacity to feel and to love. And yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you guys for sharing that. I appreciate it. So there's our list of 10 things. Just to summarize them once again, this is why people might get frustrated with you and why you're the problem. Type 5, emotional distance. Number 2, need for privacy. Number 3, over analytical. Number 4, limited energy for social interactions. Number 5, the reluctance to share your personal feelings with others. Number 6, the avoidance of practical matters, the things that, the obvious stuff that just needs to be done. Number 7, your preference for observing rather than initiating or connecting or entering in, allowing yourself the freedom to enter in. 8, information guarding. Number 9, overwhelmed with emotional expectations of others and pushing those people back. And then number 10, the defensiveness. So great stuff. Thank you, Christian Rock and Metal. I love you guys too. And, as always, don't let this stop you from being present to life and present to all the people in your life that are trying to love you. And if you're like, what? Oh, who's trying to love me? Well, okay, of course God is, and you don't want to miss that one. But let's get ourselves out there. Let's get ourselves out there and invest with other people. And people are going to burn you. People are going to irritate you. People are going to hurt your feelings. They're going to. They're going to let you down. But we need each other in our lives, and we need to be there for one another. And so if you're a 5, think about it like this. You've got a 4 wing that tells you, do you really know yourself? Like, you got all the information, but who are you and what's meaningful to you? And that's a good thought for you to think through as a 5. Do you know your feelings, and do you listen to your feelings? You listen to your heart. The 4 pulls you into your heart, right? Away from all the information, into your heart. And the 6 pulls you away from yourself back to the village and says, you need a community. You need people around you. And these wings are very good for you. So let's try to grow in both of those. Whatever your less dominant wing is where you want to start working, right? Okay, guys, thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Have a great night. Have a great week. And 5s, we love you, and we're trying to be there, with you in this. And thank you for who you are. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Have a great week.